Mark Levin here. After any presidential election, I take time to reevaluate my own financial investments. That's why I continue to invest in gold for help with my financial protection. When it comes to gold, I only trust Advantage Gold. They're a top gold company in America, and that's who I turn to for my own gold purchases. Call them now at 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit. And see if you qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. And tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Just a matter of time, and as time goes by, more and more information coming out about these wildfires in California and what these incompetent, arrogant ideologues have done to the state and the people of the state. Bombshell, Key Reservoir was empty when Palisades fire started, contributed to loss of homes and life. This is Red State. Jennifer Van Laar. When 3 1-million-gallon capacity water storage tanks in Pacific Palisades went dry Tuesday night, firefighters were forced to abandon efforts to save thousands of homes. L.A. Department of Water and Power, LADWP CEO Janice Quinones has repeatedly claimed during press conferences that her utility did everything it could to prepare for the forecasted wind event and support the Los Angeles Fire Department as it responded, but left out one key fact. The Santa Ynez Reservoir in the hills above Pacific Palisades, which holds 117 million gallons of water and normally feeds those tanks, had been drained and taken offline for repairs to its cover, even though the state's brush fire season was ongoing. LAPD watchdog site. The Santa Ynez Reservoir, which holds the 117 million, this reckless decision to take the reservoir offline left firefighters without sufficient water, severely hindered their efforts. And they lie about it. They lied about it. The Los Angeles Times followed up on the LFD watchdog's post, and that's where it came from, and confirmed that the reservoir had been drained for repairs. You don't repair the reservoir in the height of wildfire season, now do you? The outlet also spoke to a former WPP general manager, Martin Adams, who said if the reservoir had been online, it would have extended water pressure. He said you still would have ended up with serious drops in pressure. But would Santa Ynez Reservoir have helped? Yes. To some extent, it would have saved the day. He said, I don't think so. Well, it would have saved a lot of houses. That we do think so and know so. Officials haven't said how long this reservoir had been offline. but it had been empty for a while due to a tear in the cover. Now, Quinones had blamed the inability to refill the tanks on excessive demand and fire conditions, preventing crews from rerouting water to refill one tank. Adams told the LA Times if the reservoir had been online, the demand might have been 3 times as high, but it wouldn't have fully prevented the disaster. I love these lines. Wouldn't have fully prevented the disaster, but it could have helped ameliorate the problem. That's for sure. That's for sure. Just unbelievable. Quinones came to the LA Water Department in May 2024, months ago, from another beleaguered utility, Northern California's Pacific Gas and Electric, replacing Adams, while Adams was paid $435,000 a year. Quinones was hired in at a salary of $750,000. Are these government salaries, Mr. Producer? Holy mackerel. At the time, LA City Council President Paul Krikorian said this council will be considering many important appointments that the mayor will be making, but very few will be as consequential as this one. Responding to criticism of the huge salary, council member Kevin De Leon, he's a radical left-wing kook, said they needed to offer a competitive salary to attract top talent. $750,000. And by the way, that doesn't include bonuses and pensions and medical benefits and God knows what else. And a fine job they've done, haven't they? Taxpayers of California screwed left and right. Has anybody heard from Schwarzenegger lately, Mr. Environment? Anybody heard from him lately, Mr. Climate Change? Does he take responsibility for any of this over the years? I'm just curious. Are we supposed to pretend he doesn't exist? Or do we pretend that he doesn't exist? But he is oddly quiet. Oddly quiet. But there's more. Gavin Newsom. Daily Mail. Gavin Newsom cut fire budget by $100 million last year while giving more water to tiny tribal fish. It's exactly the sort of thing Donald Trump's been talking about. And they say, oh, this is disinformation. No, these are facts. Newsom is coming under fire for slashing California's funding for wildlife and forest resiliency by $101 million less than a year before devastating fires tore through L.A. Boy. The Democrat signed the budget cuts into law in June 2024, severing funding from 7 programs focused on preventing and battling potential wildfires in the state, reports Newsweek. Cuts included a $5 million decrease to the CAL FIRE fuel reduction teams, which included funding to pay for vegetation management work for the California National Guard. The total for the program was stripped of $129 million, amid claims that the state failed to clear brush and forestry that may have accelerated the flames. Newsom's budget cuts also slashed $4 million from a forest legacy program intended to promote management practices for landowners. It's unbelievable. $28 million from funding for such conservancies, they write, aimed at increasing wildfire resistance. Further $8 million was cut from monitoring and research programs that reportedly largely went to CAL FIRE. $3 million from an interagency forest data hub. Does this sound like the governor was doing all he could to deal with wildfires? No, I don't think so. Comes as Newsom has come under scrutiny. This guy isn't presidential material. He's not gubernatorial material. Trump's call for Newsom to resign comes as the president-elect pointed to Newsom's focus on Delta smelt, a 3-inch fish native to Sacramento's San Joaquin River Delta in California. The water system used by the state to fight the wildfires that have so far burned over 10,000 buildings and killed at least 10 people, far more than that, struggled and in some places failed under the strain. So they didn't put the money where they needed to. They made absolutely ridiculous decisions on that one massive reservoir. They didn't do what they needed to do. The mayor of L.A. goes off to Ghana as part of a team that is invited to go there by the Biden regime. The demand for water was so high that it wasn't enough to refill the tanks in hilly Pacific Palisades, but we also know now that it was drained of 117 million gallons of water for repair activity. I think a lot more is going to come out over time, don't you, Mr. Producer? Now look at this one as we pull them together. Leaked memo reveals L.A. Mayor Karen Bass demanded her fire department cut an extra $49 billion just 1 week before the wildfires broke out, writes the Daily Mail. Notice most of these stories are not being broken by our TV networks, the Washington Post, the New York Times, and the other phony media. Notice that? L.A. Mayor Bass demanded her fire department make an extra $49 million of budget cuts last week, a leaked memo revealed. Last week. The extra cuts requested just days. By the way, that was on top of the $17.6 million that she already cut. And those extra cuts requested just days before fires broke out and devastated swaths of L.A. would have shut down 16 fire stations and crippled the department's ability to respond to emergencies, period. Daily Mail interviewed current and former senior LAFD officers, briefed on the shocking proposed cuts, and exclusively obtained the memo from an LA Fire Department whistleblower who posts on social media under the moniker LAFD Watchdog. The memo is dated January 6, only a day before the devastating Palisades fire started. According to the sources, it was sent from LAFD's top brass at City Hall to division chiefs and captains after a fraught meeting the previous Friday between Chief Kristen Crowley and Mayor Bass. Wow. The document said the only way to provide a cost savings would be to close as many as 16 fire stations. This equates to at least one fire station per city council district. It's incredible. Now more than 54 square miles are scorched in at least 5 separate fires, more than 4,000 homes and buildings destroyed, at least 10 people dead, many more injured. It's incredible. Some senior firefighters' blood was already boiling when they received the note from their bosses about proposed budget slashes. They didn't want this out. It's an internal memo not to be distributed, one currently serving 25-year veteran of the fire department told the Daily Mail. Comes from top brass downtown, City Hall. They're trying to allocate more money for the homeless, and they need to start taking from everyone, rather. But we already exhausted our budget. It's already tapped. That's why they cut the fire academy in half, so they could save more money. That's why we're not testing if hydrants work anymore. We're doing everything we can to save money. They're not testing if hydrants can work. They're draining a massive reservoir. They're redistributing money to illegals and homeless. Take it out of the fire budget. He goes on, we have fire engines we can't get parts for. When one breaks down, we strip it of parts to put on other fire engines because we can't buy any more parts. If you shut down 16 stations, that's about 750 personnel. Then they expect us to take the same call volume. Yesterday, we did 3,800 calls, almost twice of what our daily volume usually is. We're already shy 200 paramedics. We're on the verge of another 200 quitting because we cannot do this anymore. If we don't work overtime, they suspend and threaten to terminate us. It's untenable. No, it's climate change, says the jackass Marxist Bernie Sanders. Sources briefed on the Bass memo first made the demand for tens of millions from cash-strapped department in a meeting with Chief Crowley. She wanted to cut even more, one source said. They asked for $49 million more on Friday. The chief said, we don't have it. The mayor said, find it. Find it. Well, they found it, I guess. In the ashes, Palisades and other communities throughout California. So this is what's been going on. Now ask yourself this, federal taxpayers. Ask yourself this. Where did the trillions and trillions of dollars go, which has caused massive inflation in this country? Where did it go to fight climate change? What was it used for? Trillions of your dollars, massive debt, massive inflation, to fight this very thing. And they're slashing budgets. Where did the money go? Went into the pockets of favored billionaires and millionaires, and went into the pockets of radical left-wing front organizations. It went into the pockets of people who are creating new companies that go absolutely nowhere with your money. How many times have we seen that? There needs to be a full, not investigation, criminal investigation of what happened to this so-called inflation reduction money, a.k.a. climate change money. What happened? Criminal investigation into what took place here in California. Criminal. They should put together a huge task force, bring experts in, and I'm not kidding, and get to the bottom of this. This is a massive scam that has resulted in the death of God knows how many. Massive destruction. There needs to be a full-scale criminal investigation into the Inflation Reduction Act monies, who benefited from it, and into the use of monies. We can start with California, given the devastation that's occurred there. It looks like somebody dropped an atomic bomb. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by a quarter. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. So like all crackpot kook ideologues, there we have Bernie Sanders. He knows nothing, but he immediately talks about global warming, climate change, as the cause of what took place. Why? Because Bernie Sanders is not interested in the truth. Bernie Sanders is interested in destroying America, destroying our economic system. More massive spending and economic dislocation. He wants the country to burn. He wants the country to fail. He's a Marxist. He's a punk. So at Fox, Bernie Sanders takes heat for blaming California wildfires on climate change. As wildfires ravage California, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake, Bernie Sanders is facing pushback for promoting climate alarmism. He asserted that climate change is real and that President-elect Trump must tackle the existential crisis. Shut the hell up, you old piece of you-know-what. I'm sick and tired of you. What are you doing still hanging around? You're in Vermont. You should be in a cabin. That's right. You should be in a cabin painting or doing something, maybe sniffing glue. Get the hell off the public stage, you schmuck. I'll be right back. The markets are volatile. They're shooting up wildly only to drop without warning. The Fed just cut rates yet again, this time by a quarter point. Why? Because the Federal Reserve is not confident the economy is strong. In fact, last month only 12,000 jobs were created, all of them in the government. That's why I'm telling you again, diversification is crucially important. And diversification with gold is what I do. And the company I use, and I've used many, the best one is Advantage Gold. Call them now at 800-900-8000 for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you diversify your investments and take advantage now. Now, gold has been helping to protect and grow wealth for people for thousands of years. And in these times, it can be more crucial than ever. When it comes to gold, I trust Advantage Gold. They're one of the top gold companies in America. They're who I turn to when I purchase gold. Call them now, 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000 now for a free gold investment kit to see how gold can help you with your investment portfolio, a.k.a. your bank accounts, your paycheck. And when you do, you could qualify for $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Folks, don't wait. Call them now, 800-900-8000, and tell them Mark Levin sent you. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional.
Mark Levin, tough as hell.
That's why I like Mark Levin. And I'm not sure a lot of people like him. He's tough as hell. But I like him. I love him.
Call in now, 877-381-3811.
These ideologues on the left are fundamentally incapable of managing anything. Because if you are an ideologue, remember I've told you over the years the difference between philosophy and ideology. An ideologue is not about philosophy. An ideologue is a fanatic. A fanatic for an agenda. And then they decide that that's the agenda, and then they try and force humanity to serve the agenda. It's very Rousseauian, if you will. And this is how you actually find liberty, don't you know? More government, what's best for quote-unquote the community as determined by the Bernie Sanders types. And anything that doesn't fit the mold is to be attacked. And wherever they have failure, never, never admit failure. So, you know, decades and decades and decades ago, communists used to support Joseph Stalin when he was alive. When he was alive, 80, 90 years ago. He dies. He's a failure. And so what do they say? They say communism didn't fail. Stalin failed. You see how it works? And so communism is okay. It's Stalin. He was the problem. Now, of course, the fact is that communism gives rise to the Stalins and the Maos and the Xis and the Castros and all the Maduros and all the rest. But that's not to be ever considered because Bernie Sanders is a communist. So Bernie Sanders is a tyrant. If you're a communist, you're a tyrant. AOC is a tyrant. If you're a communist, you're a tyrant. And that's what they are. They can't manage. They're driving everything through the spectrum of their ideology. And so what's the spectrum of the ideology in California of the Newsom types, of their legislature, the Democrat Party, of the Schwarzenegger types? What is the ideology that they drive every decision through? Climate change. Global cooling, global heating, climate change. And so what do you have to do? Destroy private property rights. Leave it to nature to clean up nature. It's almost like a bizarre 9th century religion. Howling at the moon. Praying to stone. That's who they are. That's what they are. That's how they believe. And they're fanatics about it. And so the consequence is what you're seeing in California right now. The consequence will be even worse nationwide because they're trying to strangle us, starve us of gasoline and oil. They're going to starve us of electricity. They're going to prevent serious alternatives from actually existing. While at the same time, they're destroying our coal mine industry. They're destroying the nuclear industry. So where are we going to go? What are we going to have? Nothing. These people don't develop anything. They don't produce anything. They don't invent anything. They don't actually solve problems. They destroy things. And that, to them, is quote-unquote progress, progressivism. Destroying things. Destroying the oil industry. Destroying the gas-powered automobile. Destroy them. Destroy logging and loggers and the use of natural resources. That's the way it goes. And so you have a state like California, which really is, or was, the richest state in the country, among the most beautiful states in the country, with massive access to water. They could do desalinization like they do in Israel. I mean, they're on the Pacific Ocean. They have a massive coast. Do they focus on that in any significant way, in any effective way? No, not at all. What water they get from the north that comes into California or that they purchase, what do they do with it? A lot of it's poured into the Pacific Ocean. Now, everything I'm telling you, they will dismiss as misinformation because that's what Marxists do. That's what fanatics do. They're the ones who deny science. They're the ones who deny knowledge. They're the ones who deny experience. And then they accuse you of misinformation and disinformation. That's how it works. And of course they're incompetent. There's a problem? Just say climate change and blame it on people who don't agree with them. That's it. It's not a matter of money. Look at the salaries they're paying these people. They're crazy salaries for public officials. $750,000, and I'm not even including bonuses and medical benefits and pensions. Is that crazy? Well, we need a competitive price. Competitive for what? For what? Newsom has spent the last 4 years running for president. He runs from one state to the next. He runs to the White House. Got a lot of time on his hands, this guy. When it came to the pandemic, he was one of the most authoritarian tyrants of all the governors. And there were many. And there were many. Because that's all he knows is the iron fist of government. He doesn't know how to effectively manage anything. He doesn't know how effectively to use limited government. Look how they squander money. They squander water. They squander everything out there. That is the government. And he's not the only one, and that's not the only state. But the lesson here, and it's a very important lesson among others, is this is what they're going to do to the country. They're going to starve us of energy. They're going to make it impossible to fight wildfires. This is what they're doing. Well, they get up there and talk about, in really sleazy propagandistic ways, about how they are going to save the earth, how you got to follow them because of this existential threat. They're the existential threat. They are. Not the average person is just trying to live their life. No, I don't think so. Yes. He was on the phone. We played it yesterday, claiming he was trying to get Joe Biden when this woman was confronting him. Turns out he wasn't trying to get anybody. Did you see that, Mr. Producer? It's a complete fake. He wasn't calling anybody. Just trying to get rid of her. That's what he was trying to do. Look what happened in North Carolina. Do you know those people in North Carolina, the vast majority of them, are still suffering? Still suffering. The media's lost any focus on them. They don't care. FEMA, flush with a new $100 billion. There's never going to be enough money in FEMA the way these people in the government and state governments conduct themselves. There's never going to be enough money. And they also use money to kind of pave over what they've done or failed to do. Just run around and talk about climate change. Bernie Sanders, what a buffoon, what a Marxist freak. Well, it's true. That's what he is. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Did you see what the Federal Reserve did literally days after President Trump's victory? It's lowered interest rates by 1/4. Do you know why it did that? It's worried about the economy. It's worried about the fact that jobs aren't being created. We're seeing all kinds of shifts in our portfolios, and it's important to stay aware. That's why I'm urging everyone to diversify and consider gold as one of your financial shields. Now, gold has weathered every kind of economic downturn throughout history. I want you to call Advantage Gold. They're the best of the best, folks. I've dealt with all of them. They're the best. They're my gold company. 1-800-900-8000. Get a free gold investment kit to see how you can get started with gold. I recommend Advantage Gold to anyone who's serious about protecting their wealth, and that's you. Call 800-900-8000 for your free gold investment kit, and you could even qualify for up to $1,000 in free silver. That's 800-900-8000. Call them now. Tell them Mark Levin sent you. You'll be very happy with them. Performance may vary. You should always consult your financial and tax professional. Todd Blanche, lead counsel for President Trump's really good lawyer. He's a really good lawyer. At the courtroom today, after the really bad judge, phony judge, Merchan, did what he did, made the following comments. Cut 3, go.
I very, very much disagree with much of what the government just said about this case, about the legitimacy of what happened in this courtroom during the trial, and about President Trump's conduct fighting this case from before it was indicted to while it was indicted, to the jury's verdict, and even to this day. What the government just said presupposes something that we disagree with very much, which was that this was an appropriate case to be brought. It was not. This case, without a doubt, knowing everything we know about the timing of the investigation, the fact that multiple prosecutors looked at the facts of this case, including prosecutors within the district attorney's office in New York County, and made a decision not to bring charges. As the court knows, shortly after President Trump announced his intention to run for re-election, this case was started for what amounted to a third time, which brings us ultimately to where we are today. A lot of what the government just said presupposes that this case is legally appropriate and that the charges that were brought by the people were consistent with the laws of New York. Again, we very much disagree with that, and as everybody has been noted, because it's true, we certainly intend on appealing that. And it's not, by the way, just counsel and President Trump that feels that way. There's many, many, many legal experts that share the same views that I just said, which is that legally this case should not have been brought, both based on the facts that were established at trial and also on the legal basis for which they were brought. But it's also not just the legal experts, not just counsel, and not just President Trump, but the majority of the American people also agree that this case should not have been brought. I mean, the interesting thing about the fact that there was a trial for the first time in our history, a criminal trial during an election season, is that the American voters got a chance to see and decide for themselves whether this is the kind of case that should have been brought. And they decided. And that's why in 10 days, President Trump was going to assume the office of the President of the United States. And certainly we're here for the court to sentence President Trump to an unconditional discharge. And for that, it's a very sad day. It's a sad day for President Trump and his family and friends, but it's also, in counsel's view, a sad day for this country, because this was a case, without a doubt, that was brought by a district attorney who promised that he would go after President Trump if elected, and felt like he had to go through with that promise. And so that's sad. And I hope, and I know that President Trump shares this view, that this will never happen again in this country. And so we certainly understand where we are today. We very much intend on pursuing an appeal of this verdict and what happened during this investigation. And we certainly believe that the only appropriate sentence, if one's to be imposed at all, which we very much believe it shouldn't be, and that the case should be dismissed, is a sentence of an unconditional discharge.
Now, I want to underscore a couple of points here. First of all, whatever you do, don't miss Life, Liberty, and Levin Saturday and Sunday. I know there's a lot of football. There's no hiding that fact. But set your DVR, record the programs. They're going to be very, very important. On Saturday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, we have Newt Gingrich and David Schoen. And Newt and I will talk at some great length, not just about the fire, but about the entire ideology surrounding it. And David Schoen is one of the best lawyers in the country. And Sunday, John Yoo, Professor Yoo, is absolutely fantastic. One of the great law professors, and Ben Shapiro is my second guest. So 2 fantastic shows. Please set your DVRs. I hope you'll watch them live, but if you can't, That's what you have DVRs for, smart TVs. You can record them other ways as well. So we look forward to that. But I'm going to spend a tremendous amount of time on this. Time, I think, is well spent. And let me just say one thing. I want you to think this through with me, because you're the smartest of smart audiences. I want you to think this through with me. You have two justices on the Supreme Court appointed by Republicans, John Roberts and Barrett, Amy Coney Barrett. What they did to our constitutional system, to the federal judiciary, to the Supremacy Clause, which is a key clause in the Constitution, they spent a lot of time debating it. That language in the Constitution is actually the third iteration. I spent a lot of time studying this specific clause, which nobody else does. They've done grave damage to the Constitution. They've done grave damage to our entire system. You know, the reason they abandoned the Articles of Confederation and created this Constitution was because of the confusion, actually the anarchy, in who was in charge of what, who could hold what, who and responsible for what. The federal government, at that time just called the national government, it didn't have the ability to raise monies to build up a military, to pay off its debt. You had states that were taxing other states. You had a mess on your hands. The Supremacy Clause, in part, just like the Constitution and its construct, was intended to, among other things, fix that. So when you have a state judge and a local prosecutor who decide that they are going to use federal law, they hide the fact, but it's clear as day, to get involved and interfere in a federal election for President of the United States. And even now, the appellate review is in the state of New York, when these are federal matters. That does enormous damage to the Constitution, and Barrett and Roberts contributed to it. Now, let me continue. Let's say the state appellate court in New York rules that Donald Trump's 100% right. They reverse and they dismiss. That's great, isn't it? But here's the problem. That's New York. That's not the other 49 states. That's not the federal system. A state appellate court has ruled that what took place was inappropriate, among other things. But the Supreme Court took a pass. And if Donald Trump wins at the state appellate level, the Supreme Court will never get a bite at the apple, because there'll be no reason to seek, again, relief from the U.S. Supreme Court. The Supreme Court really, really blew it big. More when I return. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. All right, I went too fast to the closing of the last hour. So I want to do this with you, so you'll be smarter than the average lawyer, as a matter of fact. You already are. But let's take a look at this. So President Trump is now left with appealing in the New York appellate system. That's it, the New York appellate system. Now let's say he wins. There's an appellate court that says, my God, he wins on all counts. He's 100% right. What was done below was this, that, and the other. So we reverse. He's an innocent man, and we dismiss with prejudice. That's worth celebrating, I would say. And that is now the hope of the president's lawyers. But let us step back now, if we might. That holding, whatever it is, in New York, is specific to New York. So let's say we have a DA in Chicago, or a DA in LA, or DA in any Democrat stronghold, any corrupt city, along with another corrupt judge like Merchan. And they say, you know what? 4 years from now, whoever it is, J.D. Vance, DeSantis, whomever, you know what? And they bring charges, preposterous charges, just as they did with Trump. Even though the statute of limitations ran, they're misdemeanors, they make the whatever. They come up with some concoction. Now, the defendant in that case, a presidential candidate, cannot say, but look how they ruled in New York. Doesn't apply to Illinois, doesn't apply to California, doesn't apply anywhere outside of New York. So it would be a win for President Trump, a good big win, but the country, the Constitution, the whole notion of the construct of our governing system is still damaged severely by what Bragg and particularly Merchan have done, because they interfered in federal matters. They interfered in a federal election. They distorted the federal Constitution. 4 amendments in the Bill of Rights. That doesn't get resolved. Moreover, what the U.S. Supreme Court has done is it's given its stamp of approval to the process. It didn't say the process was great. It said let the process play out. When you have a process that is scandalous, when you have a process that's an abomination, and you, the Supreme Court, rather than protecting the Supreme Court, rather than protecting the federal judiciary, rather than protecting the Constitution, the Supremacy Clause, and those amendments to the Constitution, and the whole notion of federal jurisdiction when it comes to something like federal campaign law, rather than saying, no, you cannot continue this process is illegitimate, you do not have the keyword jurisdiction to do this, it said, let it play out. Let what play out? The whole point is it's unconstitutional because, among other things, they've seized the authority that belongs to the feds. The Southern District of New York, the U.S. Attorney looked at this case and took a pass. The Federal Election Commission looked at this case and took a pass. Some local hack DA takes a look at this case and decides to concoct an entire Rube Goldberg type case with the help of a phony judge. That's not fixed for the rest of the country. That's not fixed. Now, if Donald Trump wins, stick with me, you're smart. If Donald Trump wins in the appellate process in New York, it's over. He would have no reason to appeal and seek further relief from the U.S. Supreme Court. Nobody would. So the court likely would never see it again until the next abuse. So it would not have, likely, an opportunity to fix it. And with the 2 justices, the 2 Republicans, forget the 3 reprobates, the 2 Republicans, with those 2 Republicans that voted with the reprobates, which is shocking, disgusting, they've also created motivation for the likes of another Bragg, for the likes of another Merchan in another city, in another blue state, to do something because they got away with it. Maybe not in state court ultimately, even though I suspect they might likely will, but not with the Supreme Court of the United States. Now let's say Donald Trump loses the appeals in New York in some substantial way, and his lawyers say, all right, now we're going back to the Supreme Court, which is exactly what they'll need to do and should do. And they seek relief. What's the Supreme Court going to do? Is it now going to rule that what took place in Manhattan was a violation of this with the federal Constitution, that with the federal Constitution, supremacy, jurisdiction, they have no authority, on and on and on, the Equal Protection Clause, due process, the right to effective counsel, all the things we've talked about. Is that what the Supreme Court will say now? Well, if it does say that, good for them, but they just allowed the process to proceed. They allowed the process where all this is taking place. You don't need a fact finder. You just watch TV. They allowed the process where all this is taking place to continue to its final result. How insane is that? That's why you had 4 justices, really good originalist justices, who said, no, we need to take this case now. We need this case now. I don't know what they thought. I don't know what they debated. It's not in their order. Their order is 2 or 3 sentences long. They don't show us any ankle. We don't know. But I have to believe those justices, like me, said, wait a minute. There's no jurisdiction here. That's the issue. Jurisdiction, jurisdiction, jurisdiction. That's the issue. All the rest of it's important, but it's not as important as the fact that nothing should have happened by this DA with this judge in that courtroom. Period. Period. Why am I the only one arguing this? Now, Mark, you said they should go to the Supreme Court, and look what the Supreme Court did. 2 things about that, and that's very important. Number 1, you don't go to the Supreme Court of the United States where the relief you seek, even though you make the other arguments, but the primary, upfront, marquee relief you seek is to put off the sentencing so you can pursue the appeals in New York. Say what? Yeah, I agree. You seek the relief from the Supreme Court to throw the damn case out based on, among other things, jurisdictional grounds. And it is interesting that in their very small order, the majority, a couple of sentences, they never even referenced jurisdiction or the supremacy clause. They didn't even touch it. Why? Because it wasn't prominent enough in the brief. That's why. It's that simple. But the other 4 justices, they clearly must have known this is the big issue. They didn't need to be told it was the big issue, and they wanted to take the case. But they needed 1 more justice. As I indicated to you yesterday, if the great late Chief Justice William Rehnquist were the Chief Justice in this case, as opposed to Hollywood John Roberts, the outcome of this case would have been different. The case would have been taken up by the Supreme Court. If rather than Barrett, we had Scalia, he would have been another vote for taking the case. So you would have had 6 real constitutionalists taking care of business and fixing this, not just for President Trump, but for the whole constitutional construct, for the whole federal judiciary, for the Supreme Court itself. For the Supreme Court itself. So, number 1, I would not have argued. I would not have filed the kind of brief that was filed. That's number 1. Number 2, I would have filed it much, much earlier in the process. I have no doubt for all the justices, they felt like they were under the gun. They had 48 hours to act, and this is what they did. That's just my opinion. Again, these lawyers that Trump has are fantastic. They've been facing challenges that we've never seen before in multiple jurisdictions. And the government has, a bottomless pit of money, our money, that it uses. And so lawyers can have a difference of opinion. I've said from day 1, they need to get it out of the New York system. Day 2, this is a jurisdictional issue. And then finally, from the perspective of the president's lawyers, let me say this. It's very difficult to get a court to give you relief when you're arguing, number 1, there should be no sentencing because you want relief in the New York appellate court. But number 2, it's not really a jurisdiction of New York. When you have voluntarily submitted yourself to the state process, the state appellate process. It's hard to then say that it's an illegitimate process. It's just a matter of logic. The reason why I say they may have wanted to try it much earlier is because they kept seeking relief before this step from Merchan, who was never going to give them relief. He's the one who orchestrated this entire debacle. He's Mr. Evil. You can't go to Mr. Evil and say, hey, will you dismiss what you did? Look at all these errors you made. Will you dismiss what you did? It's not going to happen, and it didn't. It's very interesting how Justice Barrett and Chief Justice Roberts were completely snookered. What do you mean, Mark? They cite the fact that Merchan is not going to oppose any penalties. Not going to oppose any penalties as a basis for not taking the case. That is, there won't be any real burden they project, they argue, on the President of the United States. He'll appeal, yes, but it's not the same thing as a trial, and so forth and so on. The reason why Merchan did what he did and did not force President Trump to wear an ankle brace or to go to jail or anything like that is because at that point he would have triggered virtually any federal court, including this Supreme Court, to step in and put an end to it. And so what did Merchan do? He thought for probably a few months. He said, all right, here's what I'll do. I'll sentence him. I'll uphold what the trial court did, as I was the trial judge. There will be no penalties. There'll be no fines. There'll be no physical limitations of any kind. So he's free to act as president. He's free to act as president, unburdened by any kind of physical limitations. In fact, I won't even fine him, because the goal here at this point is to get that convicted felon language stamped on his forehead forevermore. And so Barrett and Roberts fall for the whole thing. And I would say to Barrett and Roberts and all the rest of them, if it was or would be unconstitutional for this judge to impose a sentence of, let's say, incarceration or an ankle bracelet, thereby limiting his actions, his movement, doesn't that underscore the point that the whole thing is unconstitutional? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But Roberts and Barrett fell for it. Why? Because the truth is they didn't want to get involved. They don't want to be attacked by the New York Times legal writers. They do things that are really intended to have an influence on the press. Barrett, in particular, has gone Washington. She likes the attention. She likes being the oddball. She's becoming more and more sort of the Anthony Kennedy, that sort of a justice, maybe even worse, quite frankly. John Roberts is very, very worried about his legacy. There are some issues he believes in quite strongly, but look how he used, in an absurd way, the tax clause of the Constitution to uphold Obamacare, which is clearly unconstitutional. Clearly unconstitutional. 5-4 decision. Scalia went to him. Even Kennedy went to him. Anthony Kennedy. They begged him. But he reversed course, you see. That's why the opinion was written like some third grader wrote it, with all the typos and all the rest. At the very end, Roberts decided that he would throw in with the left and he would uphold Obamacare. It's an abomination of a decision. Whatever you think of Obamacare is beside the point. I'm talking about federal constitutional law and the role of a justice. And he's done that on more than one occasion. If he feels strongly about something, he'll stick to his principles, but if not, he's malleable. He's malleable. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you could get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot, just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of four could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company. Don't forget, you'll be able to hear it all on the weekend. Tomorrow night, Life, Liberty, and Levin, 8 p.m. Eastern. I don't address the case there. I do address other very, very important issues. And then on Sunday, yes, I address it in full, and I will address it in full. You know, circling back to this fire in California, I'm reminded of Joe Biden, this massive spending bill, and one of the things he said, because Joe Biden is a disgusting psychopath. He's a liar. And here's what he said in July 2021 when they passed that outrageous, massive bill. Cut 6, go.
Is that it includes billions of dollars to strengthen wildfire preparedness, resilience, and response. It includes funding for prevention efforts like forest management, and restore millions of acres of high-risk areas to protect homes and public water sources for drinking. And, and overlaying all of this is the necessity to successfully confront climate change.
You know, ladies and gentlemen, if these people were in the private sector, they'd be going to prison for the rest of their lives. To take this kind of money, to lie about how you're investing it, to we, the people investing the money, the taxpayers. Imagine if this were the private sector, and you were persuading people to provide you with money, and you tell them something like this, it's going to go towards this, and it doesn't. You'd wind up in prison. Are you not sick and tired of this crap? They spend these enormous sums of money. Always, about a quarter of it is wasted through fraud and abuse and mismanagement. They always claim they're going to fix things. They fix absolutely nothing. They drive their ideology. They take care of their friends and their donors and all the rest. And this is what you wind up with, mayhem and death. July 2021, Joe Biden lied to you. You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you could get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot, just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of four could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company.
The new American Revolution starts here. The Mark Levin Show. Call in at 877-381-3811.
Gavin Newsom's the victim now. We got to stop this misinformation. People are trying to divide this country. No, a-hole. That's not anything kind of what's taking place. You need to be held to account. Representative Judy Chu, Democrat, California, another expert. She's on the Constipated News Network. There was water in the hydrants. It was the electricity that was turned off. So now we have this Keystone Cops crap going on. Cut 9, go.
I had a briefing yesterday when I was with the FEMA administrator, and there is enough water, but what there was a problem that occurred right at the height of the fire, which is that they had to turn down the electricity in order to make sure that the fire wasn't aggravated because of the electricity. They need electricity.
Whoa. The fire aggravated by the electricity? What the hell are you talking about? You have to turn down the electricity, Mr. Producer, so the fire doesn't get worse? Have you ever heard anything so stupid in your life? Now, we've been told there wasn't enough water. Now we're told there was plenty of water, there wasn't enough electricity. And this is what happens when you have ideologues. Now they're pointing fingers. They want to create confusion, static. They want to confound people so it can never get resolved. They want no accountability. Well, who's the electricity people? What's that group? Oh, that's over there. Where's the water group? Oh, they're over there. Oh, the water groups there. Okay, where are the forest managing people? Oh, they're over there. I see. And stop with the disinformation and misinformation. Stop criticizing us. Stop dividing the nation. What? What are you talking about? Dividing the nation. This is very interesting. In fact, let's hear this jackass say this, Mr. Producer. Where is it? It's cut 7. Cut 7, I think it is.
We've got to deal with this misinformation. There are hurricane force winds of mis and disinformation, lies. People want to divide this country, and we're going to have to address that as well.
So let's stop right here. So people want to divide this country. Yeah, between right and wrong. You see, this is what losers, pathetic demagogues like Gavin Newsom, this is what they do. And so now the debate should be over, we're dividing the nation with misinformation and disinformation. Remember all this misinformation, disinformation crap when it came to COVID? Anybody who dared to raise a serious question about the source of it as an example? Conspiracy theorists dividing the nation. They're not for the nation's health. This is what's going on here. This is Newsom. He went back to the playbook, the old Soviet playbook. Attack the accusers. Attack the people who've been victimized. Attack the people who want answers. They're dividing the nation, don't you know? And then there's Biden coming to Newsom's rescue. This is pretty funny. So Newsom's character witness is Biden. And what about Biden's responsibilities? All the money that he said that was going to be used to stop or at least to ameliorate situations like this. What happened? Where'd it go? Cut 8, go.
I think you're getting a bad rap. I know you're getting a bad rap about these fire hydrants don't have enough water in them. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Shut the hell up with your give me the break crap, old man. You demented, depraved buffoon. Give me a break. Give me a break. Get your ass out of the Oval Office faster. Please. You're responsible for this too, you schmuck. That's correct. All this money, massive amounts of money. You lie to the American people. You're going to take care of the forest management. Where'd it go? Where's the money? They're cutting the budget for forest management. They're cutting the budget for firefighters to manage wildfires. What are you talking about, you schmuck? You don't even know. You don't even know. But don't worry. They got the D on their hats, Democrats, and he comes to the... You're getting a bum rap. You're getting a bum rap, Gavin. Bum rap. He hasn't even been held to account yet for the horrors that are taking place in California. Bum rap. Then we get lectures from Biden. But DeSantis has had enough of it, America's governor. He's there with the other governors. They're at Mar-a-Lago to meet with the president, the Republican governors. And then some phony reporter, another pretend reporter, barks out a question, and DeSantis makes quick work of her. Cut 10, go.
Republican the president-elect or a president to be criticizing.
Is it appropriate for people in your industry to try to create division and to try to create narratives anytime these things happen? Now, you're not as interested in doing that because Newsom is a D. If Newsom was a Republican, you guys would go you would have him nailed to the wall for what they're doing over there. And I know we've dealt with it. We just assume in Florida, anytime something happens, it's going to be politicized by the media. So you guys sitting in judgment of Donald Trump, I mean, excuse me, I think your track record of politicizing these things is very, very bad.
Cut 11, go.
Last question. Newsom should resign and that the wildfires are all his fault. So do you agree with those comments?
I remember when we had the Surfside Tower collapse, I had people from the Washington Post trying to blame me for it immediately without having any facts or anything. Oh, he didn't declare a state of emergency. First of all, state of emergency doesn't mean you can't respond. It's all that. Excuse me?
Biden did it. I think that's what you said.
Well, but what I'm telling you is you guys are trying to make an issue of it when I have watched from this seat. In fact, when I got elected governor, I was meeting with some of the other Republican governors, and what they would say is, hey, if you have a natural disaster, just know media's coming at you, they're going to do it. It's not the same. That mayor of L.A., if that were a Republican mayor, I could only imagine what that would do. I mean, you know the fires are at high risk, and you try to go to Africa or wherever she was to go on some type of voyage. You should have been there preparing and doing that, and yet I don't see a lot of heat being directed in that thing. And so, I'd like to see some balance on how this is done. You could criticize the president-elect, but I think you also have to hold these other people accountable, and I have not seen that.
Yeah, like they didn't hold Kamala Harris accountable when she was fundraising on the West Coast when the hurricanes were happening. Remember all that, folks? Robert Rivas, who you've never heard of, is a California assemblyman, and he's at a press conference today. And just so you know, one of the things going on in California, one of the great priorities of the Democrats, who have a supermajority in the Assembly there and in the Senate there, is to Trump-proof California from Donald Trump's policies. In other words, undermine the electorate. Keep their radical, crazy-ass agendas going as they destroy their state in every respect and in every way. So there's a real reporter that says, why are you focused on this, given what's going on in your state? Cut 12, go.
Is now the right time to have a special legislative session on allocating money to fight Trump in a way that you could already do without a special legislative session? So I'm here to address these wildfires. This is a historic wildfire. This is a historic event.
Hold on, but she's saying, but wait a minute, that's fine, but you're having a special legislative session dealing with Trump. Not the wildfires. Why are you continuing with your special legislative session to smear Trump when you have these wildfires going? I'm here to discuss the wildfires. That's fine. So why are you having your special legislative session? Go ahead.
Going to be quite possibly some of the worst wildfires and disasters in state and national history.
While this wildfire is happening, and while people are trying to understand what's going on and are worried about disaster relief, worried about the ability to get homeowners insurance, your chamber gavelled into a special legislative session to prepare for Donald Trump in a way that you are already able to do without a special legislative session. So again, is now the right time for that?
So certainly our focus right now is Speaker Ashley. At this moment, my colleagues and I, we are acting with great urgency to ensure that we're providing much needed relief to Angelenos, to ensure that we understand what it's going to take for this region to recover.
Shut up, you mumbling, stumbling buffoon. And you've done a fantastic job up to this point. And you didn't answer her question either. They didn't need a special session to Trump-proof California. Her point is, you can do all your crap without a special session, but you want to make a dramatic event out of this. And here we have this horrendous wildfire, the worst on record, the worst ever that we know of in L.A. and around L.A. And you're still going forward with, well, we're here, we're focused. Shut up, you idiot. He is an idiot. You know, it wasn't that long ago where the Los Angeles Fire Department Assistant Chief, Christine Larson, made it quite clear how she views her job. She's one of the DEI hires, by the way, as I understand it, given her sexual preferences. Again, that's how I understand it. I don't know it. That's what I hear. Cut 13, go.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire.
Whoa. Is that a woman? I'm just curious. Is that a... And I'm not joking. Is that a female? Okay. Start from the top again, please.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire. Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
Ah, what a response. So where should we sit in our homes? You see, ladies and gentlemen, with the DEI and that kind of mentality, it's not about merit. It's not about why you're hired, a job you have to do. It's about the best interest, the needs, the desires, the ideology of the person you hire. So what is this business that I have to carry a man out of the house? What is he doing sitting in the house in the first place, right, Mr. Producer? It's not my fault if he burns to death. It's his fault. He's in the house, and there he is, sitting in the house. That was a great state. I lived there briefly. Was a great state. Really was. Look what these people have done to it. Look what these crazy-ass ideological leftists have done to it. Oh, with the misinformation, and they're trying to divide us. As Rome burns. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You voted big government out and efficient government in. Well, now it's time to trim the fat from big wireless. If you're still on the other big name providers, I have one question. Why? Pure Talk, my cell phone company, gives you the exact same service on the exact same towers with better customer service because they're based right here in the United States, all for half the cost. That's right. There's simply no need to spend $85 or $100 per person on your wireless bill, not when you can get unlimited talk, text, and 15 gigs of data with mobile hotspot, just $35 a month. My friends, the average family of four could save about $1,000 a year with Pure Talk while enjoying one of America's most dependable 5G networks. So cut the fat out of your wireless bill. Switch to Pure Talk by going to puretalk.com/Levin. Again, puretalk.com/Levin, and you'll save an additional 50% off your first month with Pure Talk, America's wireless company. I want to dig down on this a little bit, Mr. Producer. Can you play Cut 13 again? Christine Larson, the L.A. Fire Department Assistant Chief, and what she said about, can you carry my husband? DEI. Cut 13, go.
Is she strong enough to do this? Or you couldn't carry my husband out of a fire.
That's her.
Which my response is, he got himself in the wrong place if I have to carry him out of a fire.
No, I hadn't before, but I took a look at this woman. May I say woman, Mr. Producer, or is that offensive? She looks like a defensive lineman, doesn't she? She doesn't have to be a DEI hire. She looks to me like she could carry any man out of a house. She looks like a defensive lineman. I'm just saying that commercial was unnecessary. But it is a good question for all firefighters if they can carry somebody's husband out of the house. I mean, isn't that part of their job? Apparently not. No, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, merit and all that. I'm an old guy from the past. It's the way we used to view things. Like you're being hired for a service, a professional. Now we got to change all that. I'm sorry, I screwed up. See, it's Friday evening. The power hour is next, and a lot of guys will be tapping the brakes, not me. The foot is full down on the gas pedal, and we're on the move. 5 nights a week, 3 hours every night. The last hour of the week is coming up, the power hour. We'll be right back.
He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. I saw this on the front page of USA Today yesterday, which I guess would be USA Today yesterday, right, Mr. Producer? Which means it's not USA Today, it's USA Today yesterday. Or USA Yesterday. Well, you get the point. It's gotten precious little coverage, as best as I can tell. Here's the headline. It's on the front page, the left column. Antifa militants ready to mobilize. Members say Trump will have to make first move. In Philadelphia, anti-fascists, who happen to be fascists, actually, for the day the leader of the local Proud Boys chapter gets out of prison. Can this guy write English? In Philadelphia, anti-fascists, are preparing for the day the leader of the local Proud Boys chapter gets out of prison, jailed for his role in the January 6th insurrection, they write. Who wrote this? Will Carless. Will Carless. That's pretty funny. It should be Will Careless. There's no insurrection, jackass. Nobody has been charged with an insurrection. I don't know how many more times we have to say this. Local Antifa are sure he will receive a presidential pardon only to return to the city of brotherly love to relaunch his career of spreading hate and picking fights. This is an article by a reporter. Miami, self-professed members of Antifa, a political movement of far-left militants who oppose neo-Nazis and white supremacists at demonstrations and other events. Look how they describe Antifa. Antifa is a Marxist organization, a violent Marxist organization. But look how he defines them. Say they are bracing for a coming immigration crackdown. They're hoping President... Now, hold on a second. Does this article make sense to you yet, Mr. Producer? What does a coming immigration crackdown have to do with the Proud Boys guy getting out? Nothing. And so this fool jumps from Philadelphia to Miami. There's no... this is illiteracy. They're hoping President-elect Donald Trump's harshest campaign promises don't come to fruition. Harshest campaign promises? Why are Trump's campaign promises harsh? Unless they're radical kook Marxist leftists with Antifa. But they're ready in case they see civil rights being violated and decide they have to act. Civil rights being violated? They're the brown shirts. In Ohio, a hardened Antifa coalition also waits to see what happens. Anti-fascist organizers and volunteers say they're gearing up in case America witnesses another George Floyd situation. And its black-clad militant wing into protests and action. They're ready. So here's a domestic terrorist organization already warning that they are prepared to unleash. And it's the same in California, where disparate groups of anti-fascists across the state... this writer is so disgusting. Anti-fascists are waiting and watching to see how a second Trump term pans out and whether they need to don their signature all-black clothing and hit the streets. Seems to me they ought to be rounded up and thrown in prison if they pull any of this crap. If blank gets bad enough, that's the operating phrase right there. There's always going to be a response, says Darrell Lamont Jenkins, a self-proclaimed anti-fascist and executive director of the One People's Project. As we say in the black community, don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Say what? They say that in the black community? I don't think so. As they say in prison, don't bend down for the soap. Right, Mr. Producer? Got that, pal? Very few experts on domestic extremism truly understand the movement, which adherents call a political philosophy, but opponents decry as everything from a thuggish menace to an evil army bent on destroying America. No, Marxist bastards, you dummy. So now we have this terrorist militia organization that is now threatening if Donald Trump actually does what he campaigned on, won a landslide election on, they're going to take to the streets and become violent. And it seems to me we need to hire more cops. We need to be supportive of our cops. And the cops need to do what the cops need to do to take care of these bastards. Within the law, of course. What did you think I was talking about? Within the law. Antifa. And these reporters, this fool, Will Carlos. Biden at the White House today. These little snippets do tell us a lot. Cut 21, go.
Have you ruled out a pardon for yourself or any other additional members of the family?
For myself?
Yes, sir.
What would I pardon myself for?
That's what I'm asking.
No, I have no contemplation of pardoning myself for anything. I didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah, right. He already pardoned himself through his son. More on Biden at the White House. Could he have beaten Donald Trump? Cut 22, go.
Mr. President, do you regret your decision to run for re-election? Do you think that made it easier for your predecessor to now become your successor?
I don't think so. I think I would have beaten Trump, could have beaten Trump, and I think that Kamala could have beaten Trump, would have beaten Trump. It wasn't about...
Okay, can we hold up there for 1 second? She lost to Trump, did she not, Mr. Producer, or did I miss something? In a landslide defeat, I believe. So she could have beaten Trump, but she didn't beat Trump. And Biden, you couldn't beat Trump. You couldn't beat a kumquat. Your mind is gone. Actually, the truth is, if we ever speak the truth about that, he's never had a mind. He's always been a dumbass. I'm just being honest. Go ahead.
Unify the party. And when the party was worried about whether or not I was going to be able to move, I thought even though I thought I could win again, I thought it was better to unify the party. And well, you did a fantastic job there, Marble Brain. You did a fantastic job. And what does he say? He thought the party come together to move? Is that what it is? To move? No, they came together because they saw that you're an insane maniac. And they would have been fine with that, but the problem is the people saw that you're an insane maniac. And so they got worried. And so they broomed you. You couldn't beat anything. Go ahead. Except your head against the wall. Go ahead. Be President of the United States, but I didn't want to be one who caused a party that wasn't unified to lose an election. And that's why I stepped aside. But
you don't even make any sense. I could have beaten Trump, but I didn't run because I didn't want the party to be disunified and lose the election. So this is our man Biden. This is our man Biden, or their man Biden, rambling on like a buffoon. Go ahead. That's it? There's not more? I'm just kidding. We don't want any more, and we don't need any more. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
The New York Times is very concerned about Mark Zuckerberg. Remember I told you a few weeks back when Elon Musk was being trashed by some elements within the MAGA movement? And I said, I don't know what they're doing, but isn't the goal to attract as many of these people as we can into our midst to support us? And I still believe that. Now, Mark Zuckerberg appears to be making that journey. Now, I don't know whether to trust him or not. That's not my point. The point is, for whatever reason, he seems to be making that journey. President Trump seems to be somewhat persuaded by it. He's destroyed and eliminated his fact-checker division, which is driving them nuts on the left. And this will really drive them nuts. A really long New York Times piece. Mark Zuckerberg kept the circle of people who knew his thinking small, you know. After visiting President Donald Trump in November, he decided to relax, made his speech policies. He's asked a small team to carry out his goals within weeks. And the repercussions are just beginning. So now they're going to go after Zuckerberg. Again, I don't know what to think of this guy, but I'm just analyzing this and observing it with you. So now Zuckerberg needs to go. He was great, but like Elon Musk, he has to be attacked, has to be vilified. How dare he? How dare he come over to the bright side, the freedom side? No. And he talked about how the Biden regime operatives and thugs would scream at his people, yell at him and his people whenever they would carry a story like on the virus that didn't comport with their demands. But this is the line that got us. In a very long article, that same day at Meta's offices in Silicon Valley, Texas, and New York, facilities managers were instructed to remove tampons from men's bathrooms, which the company had provided for non-binary and transgender employees who use the men's room and who may have required sanitary pads, two employees said. Can I ask you a question? Why don't you bring your own tampons? I don't get it, Mr. Producer. What? People don't have tampons unless they're hanging around in a public bathroom or something? I've never heard of such a thing. That's number one. Number two, you know what they do with tampons in men's rooms and boys' rooms? Do you know what they do, Mr. Producer? I don't know this, but I've heard this. They make like water balloons, water bombs out of them. Fill them with water and they throw them out the window. No, I don't know that to be true. I'm just saying, what else would you do with tampons in a men's bathroom? Well, I'm a transgendering person. I need my... Well, buy your own damn tampons. Put them in your own damn purse and carry them with you. What, Zuckerberg can't get rid of tampons in men's bathrooms? And this is in the New York Times article as one of the complaints. The Holocaust-denying New York Times found this to be very, very troubling. And so this is basically a hit on Zuckerberg. He's given up on the LGBTQ community. In the days since the moves, which have sweeping implications for what people will see online. See, their platforms, the New York Times, why don't they ask? I have a question for Maggie Haberman, a.k.a. Maggot Haberman, who shows up on CNN with that sourpuss all the time, constantly looks like she's constipated. Won't somebody ask her, Maggie, do you have tampons in the men's rooms at the New York Times? Do you? I'd just like to know. We're just curious here. Let's see here. Inside Meta, the reaction has been sharply divided. Some employees have celebrated the moves, while others were shocked and have openly castigated the changes on the company internal message board. Several employees wrote that they were ashamed to work for Meta. Well, then resign. What's the problem? On Friday, Meta's makeover continued when the company told employees that it would end its work on diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. DEI. It eliminated its chief diversity officer role, ended its diversity hiring goals that called for the employment of a certain number of women and minorities, and said it would no longer prioritize minority-owned businesses when hiring vendors. In other words, what they're saying is, you know what, we're going to treat human beings like human beings, regardless of their genitalia, regardless of their race, regardless of their height, regardless of everything else. And this is very upsetting over there at the New York Slimes, which must, I guess, be filled with DEI people. Is Maggie Haberman DEI? I would love to ask her that. Would you invite Maggie Haberman of the New York Times on the program, Mr. Producer? Just tell her I want to have a wide-ranging interview with her. Wide-ranging. And other like the Constipated News Network, also known as CNN, there's actually an audience here. Now, Meta planned to focus on how to apply fair and consistent practices that mitigated bias for all, no matter your background. You can't have that. What are you, a racist, anti-Semite, homophobe? At the White House Friday, President Biden told reporters that Mr. Zuckerberg's decision to abandon fact-checking on Facebook and Instagram was shameful. Says Mr. Pathetic, stinking liar his entire life. And by the way, why did they ask? Why do they care what Biden has to say about it? Who cares what Biden has to say? and interviews more than a dozen current and former Meta employees. Now, they have 70,000 employees or something like that. So they interviewed more than a dozen. Let's see what they came up with. Let's see. Described her shift as serving a dual purpose. It positions Meta for the political landscape of the moment, with conservative power ascending in Washington as Mr. Trump takes office. The changes reflect Zuckerberg's personal views of how his $1.5 trillion company should be run, and he no longer wants to keep those views quiet. You know, it amazes me. You've got this guy Bezos. He owns the Washington Compost. He's taking a lick in there. It's not making any money. It's losing a ton of money. So some cartoonist wants to do a cartoon embarrassing Bezos, who owns the paper, and they blocked it. Oh, my God! They blocked a cartoonist from doing a cartoon attacking the man who owns the newspaper? Why is that so controversial? He owns the damn paper. Who's the cartoonist? He's a nobody. So what? Or that guy, the LA Times, remember him? He said, no, the editorial board, I'm going to change. You can't do that. See, the Marxist Islamist left, they don't want free speech. They don't want a competition of ideas. They want their tampons no matter what, Mr. Producer. Let's see here. Among its changes, Meta loosened rules so people could post statements saying they hated people of certain races, religions, or sexual orientations, including permitting quote-unquote allegations of mental illness. Boy, I'd be in trouble with Biden on that one. Or abnormality when based on gender or sexual orientation. This from the newspaper that covered up the Holocaust. They're very concerned about this. The company cited political disclosure about transgender rights for the change. It also removed a rule that forbade users to say people of certain races were responsible for spreading the coronavirus. Now, here's what's going on here. They're taking these extreme examples, which are probably not even part of quote-unquote company policy, but, you know, you get all these people who go on these sites and they say all kinds of stuff and so forth and so on. And now they're saying, well, he allowed this to happen. He allowed this to happen. So what? Then don't read it. Meta locked access to the policies and training materials internally late on Thursday, they said, hours after The Intercept published excerpts. Intercept is a radical left-wing site, which unfortunately too many of my friends and colleagues go to all the time for some damnable reason. The company also removed the transgender and non-binary themes on its messenger chat. Wait a minute. They removed the themes? Did they remove the Broadway dance songs, Mr. Producer? Let's hope not, because those themes are, you can't touch those themes. That's right. The Broadway tunes. Can't remove those. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
Don't forget, folks, set your DVR, watch live. Life, Liberty, and Levin this weekend. Killer shows. 8 p.m. Eastern Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Sunday. 2 brand new shows. Saturday, we'll have the great Newt Gingrich and David Schoen, fantastic lawyer, to discuss a lot of what's been taking place. On Sunday, we have the great Professor John Yoo and our buddy Ben Shapiro. And, of course, both times me with my opening statement, which people tell me they love. I spent a lot of time on it. It comes right out of my brain and right out of my mouth. I don't have any ghostwriters like most of these people do. I don't have any editors like most of these people do. It's me, myself, and I, all three of us. And I think we're going to start a union, me, myself, and I. And I think I'm going to call it me, myself, and I. Maybe you think the Teamsters would let me join, Mr. Producer? I want to start the me, myself, and I union. And I'd like to be a Teamster. You know what? It sounds tough. Yeah, I'm a Teamster. What are you going to do about it? Oh, okay. Ooh, I didn't know. I thought you were with the teachers union, but you're a Teamsters. No, I didn't know. What about that, Rich? Me, myself, and I, all three of us, we each have a vote, and we'll become part of the Teamsters. Now, I really don't want to pay the dues, though, Oh, I'm the president. Oh, me, myself, or I? Me. I'm the president. I is the chairman, and or what's left? Me, myself, or I, and myself is the sergeant arms. So we have it all set. By the way, some people have asked. They said, "Whatever happened to FU?" We get those inquiries, don't we, Mr. Producer? The FU inquiries, where they're constantly saying FU, and I'm thinking, I didn't know it was in this kind of demand. But yes, the Fatties United, or FU, is still in existence. I still run it. I want you to know that all the funds that I raise for FU go to the cause of FU. Now, we haven't actually figured out what the cause is yet. But as you know, FU is a charitable, nonprofit, bipartisan, bisexual organization. Did you know that, Mr. Producer? Yes, yeah. Hey, we're with it. We're with it, and I'm thinking of offering a membership to Zuckerberg. It won't be free. I mean, the guy's worth, $412 billion or something like that. But I'm thinking we'll have Zuckerberg on with FU so we can expand our influence. Well, we'll see. I don't know. Brian, Miami, Florida, XM Satellite. Brian, how are you? Speaker forever, hold yourself. Here we go, Mr. Producer. Let's move on. Tony, Clifton, New Jersey, the great WABC. Tony, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am, Mr. Levin. Happy New Year. How are you?
Same to you, my friend. I'm doing great. Let me look. Yep, I'm doing great. Thank you.
I'm very disappointed on Amy Coney Barrett and Supreme Court Justice Roberts. I think Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 78 talked about some clear things that make this a disgrace, and maybe they ought to read Federalist 78. I'll just give you 3 points. Whoever attentively considers the different departments of power must perceive that in a government in which they are separated from each other, the judiciary, from its tenure of its functions, will always be the least dangerous to the political rights of the Constitution. Number 2, and I'll make this my second thought, no legislation action contrary to the Constitution can be allowed. And number 3, the Constitution should be preferred to statutes. And if there's so much more in there, Mark, it's amazing. So apparently they haven't read it.
What do you think they would say about a state DA and a state judge interfering in a federal election, usurping federal authority, changing their state laws by the use of a federal law that they don't even identify, giving jury instructions to a biased jury out of Manhattan and telling them to pick one of 3 underlying felonies in order to create a list of felonies, 34 from misdemeanors that had their statute of limitations run? What do you think the founders would have said about that? They would have said, this is absolute tyranny. Meanwhile, as you point out, Barrett and Roberts said, let the process go on. Let the process go on. What do you think about that, Tony? What kind of Supreme Court justices are we talking about here?
Well, these are Supreme Court justices that are not looking to the Constitution for direction. They're looking for the other variables in the community. They're politically based, sir. Exactly.
And they're afraid of the PR that they'll get from the compost and the slimes and the other dying media platforms. But, this guy, Hollywood John Roberts, he's buddies with Thomas Friedman, at the radical left-wing Israel Netanyahu-hating columnist at the New York Slimes. Did you know that?
I'm not surprised, but I didn't know that, no.
You see, they get caught up in this social vortex in Washington, D.C. It's happened to a lot of them. Souter, Blackman, I can go down the list, and now apparently Barrett. Barrett, who is supposed to be the most conservative of the bunch, she is almost all gone now. Almost all gone. I want to say this about Kavanaugh. I don't always agree with him, but he is a serious jurist. He really is. And when you look at the jurists that they attack on the left and in the media, they're the best. That's why they attack them. Clarence Thomas, Sam Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh. They don't attack John Roberts. And I'll tell you something else about this guy, Hollywood John. They know who leaked the draft of the Dobbs decision. He wouldn't bring the FBI in. He wanted to do it in-house with his own investigators because he knows who leaked it. It had to be one of the left-wing justices or their clerks. Who else would leak it? And he's covered up for them. That's what he's done. This is Hollywood John Roberts. And what he and Barrett did here by joining the three kook radical leftists on the court is an attack on the federal system, an attack on their own court. It's truly a disgrace what they've done here, an absolute disgrace. Tony, thank you for your call, my friend. All right, I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Oh, yeah. Let's go to Mike, Brooklyn, New York, the great WABC. Mike, go right ahead, please.
Oh, Mr. Levin, thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
I want to talk about California.
Go for it.
I was there for 6 months. Yeah, so I did temporary work. I set up tents for their prisoners, and they made just over $1 a day. Now, they were sweating when they took off their massive outfits to protect themselves from the heat. So also, when the fires broke out, I was asked to take pictures of the residence I was in, of the fridge, the computer, the washing machine, etc. For insurance reasons. This was a normal cause. And the last thing I wanted to say is that with the power outages. So not only do you have the fires in California, but you have the brownouts, blackouts, etc. like this. So what we did is we would take to 2 days worth of food, put it in a cooler with ice packs. Then,
all right, my friend. Fantastic advice, don't you think, Rich? Fantastic advice. I do appreciate it, but we have to move along, I'm afraid. Do I have any time left, Mr. Producer? Grace, New London County, Connecticut. We have a minute and a half. Please go right ahead.
Hi, Mark. I listen to your show religiously to keep me updated about what's going on in Washington and keep all the legal stuff straight. But I'm calling in about your leg. I'm a physical therapist, and I've been concerned about you. You probably already know this. You probably already have a physical therapist and are going through a rehab process. But a lot of people don't realize the largest muscle of the body is your butt, your gluteus maximus. And when you've been laid up for a while, when your leg is weaker and you're going through everything you're going through, that muscle needs to be rehabbed as well, needs to be strengthened.
How do you rehab your ass? I'm just curious. What do you do exactly?
You have a recumbent bike or two. Those are
I
good.
just got a recumbent bike, actually. Just got it. Yep. It's really unbelievable.
And those are good. That's great. And the very best way is to lie face down if you can, with weights on your legs and do a straight leg raise.
No, that's not happening.
Well, yeah, if you can't lie face down. But the recumbent bike is good. But just the other way you can do it is by lying on your back and bridging with one leg, doing a bridge.
I do that, by the way. I do that.
Yep. So
Grace, you're very sweet. I want to thank you very, very much. And for all of you out there who are losing your asses, you can build them up too. Now, ladies and gentlemen, but Grace is right on. She's very sweet. I want to thank you, Grace. We go to America every Friday in honor of you. Here we go. Monday, I'll be leaving the bunker in Florida for the bunker in Virginia in the middle of the winter. Why? Because I'm a schmuck. That's why. 8 p.m. Eastern Time Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time Sunday, Life, Liberty, and Levin. I'm counting on you, folks. Set your DVR so you never have to worry about it again. And better yet, watch it live. I know there's a lot going on. I do these programs for you. The week is officially over. The weekend begins right now. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our trucker friends, the men and women in Ukraine and in Israel. Good night, Spritey and Griffey and Pepsi. Good night, Zelda and Smokey and Gigi. Good night, Indy and Patton and Rory and Marty and Barney. Good night, Dad, and good night, Mom and Leo. Good night, Joe and Bernard and Teddy and Lou. And good night, America. I will see you tomorrow. Chin up and God bless.